After my husband's azoo diagnosis nearly ended our marriage, we just found out I'm pregnant. With our miracle of, I'm 29 years old, and I've been with my husband, also 29, for 6 years now, married for 3. We've always been a strong couple. The kind that friends describe as solid, dependable, steady. We come from family-oriented backgrounds. Sunday dinners, birthday traditions, weddings where kids run around barefoot and laughing. So it's probably not surprising that both of us always knew we wanted kids. It wasn't even a discussion, it was a shared understanding, like breathing. By most measures, we're ready. We're financially stable, emotionally mature, and have built a life that we truly feel would be beautiful to bring a child into. So when we officially started trying for a baby in early 2023, it felt like the natural next step in the life we were building together. We were excited, nervous, sure, but hopeful. Month after month, nothing happened. At first, I tried not to let it get to me. I tracked my cycle. I ate better. I took my vitamins. We tried all the tips and hacks people share on forums. But as the months passed with no positive test, I began to feel a quiet panic growing in my chest. I was scared. And in October, I brought it up with him, suggesting maybe we look into getting our fertility checked. He brushed it off in that easygoing way of his. He said I was being a worry rat, and that plenty of couples take a year or more. Let's give it a full year, he said. Then we'll get tested. I didn't want to push it too hard. He was probably right. We were healthy, still young, and statistically still within the normal range. But the fear didn't go away. It just went quiet, simmering beneath the surface. February 2024 rolled around. I kept track of the date like a countdown in my head. I made the appointments for both of us. He didn't resist, but he wasn't enthusiastic either. I think, like me, he assumed if something was wrong, it would be on my side. Not because he ever said that, but because that's the story we hear over and over about women struggling, about ticking clocks, about hormone treatments and IVF. When the doctor called us with the results, I think we both knew it wasn't going to be simple, but we weren't ready for what we heard. He was diagnosed with azoo. No sperm present in his sample. Not low count. Not poor motility. None. The doctor explained there were 2 types, obstructive and non-obstructive, and based on the tests, my husband likely had the non-obstructive kind, meaning his body wasn't producing sperm at all. The specialist added that in his case, surgical extraction probably wouldn't yield much, if anything, but said it still wouldn't hurt to try. It was one of the worst days of our lives. He didn't cry. I did. I think he was in shock at first. He just sat there with this hollow look in his eyes, nodding silently as the doctor explained all the potential next steps: hormonal meds, exploratory surgery, donor sperm, adoption. Later that night, he held me while I cried. He said he felt like something inside him had died, that he felt broken, less of a man. I told him none of that was true, that we were in this together, and that biology doesn't make a father, love does. I told him we'd explore every route available: medication, surgery, sperm donation, even from a relative if that made it easier, and adoption if it came to that. But since February, it's like he's shut down completely. He refuses to try anything. He says he doesn't want to go on meds because it probably won't work anyway. That the surgery is a waste of time and pain if the doctor already has low hopes. He says using a sperm donor makes him feel emasculated, that he couldn't raise a child knowing it came from some other man's DNA. Even the idea of using a donor from within his family, someone whose genetics might be similar to his, he dismissed instantly. And adoption? He won't even talk about it. Says it's never been something he's wanted, that he won't feel like a real parent, and doesn't want to raise someone else's kid. I've tried everything. I've given him space. I've had gentle conversations. I've sat with him in silence. I've cried in the shower, screamed into my pillow. I've tried to understand what he's going through because, yes, this diagnosis hits his identity, his masculinity, and his dreams in such a visceral way. But he's not the only one mourning here. I am grieving too. I've always dreamed of becoming a mother. I imagined tiny shoes lined up by the door, a nursery filled with books and lullabies, the feeling of a baby's head resting on my chest. I imagined watching him become a father, watching him hold our baby for the first time, crying because he's overwhelmed with love. I imagined our life as a family. That dream is slipping further and further away. With every month, he does nothing. What hurts the most is that he's not just frozen in his grief. He's freezing me out too. It feels like he's chosen his pride over our future. Like he's letting his pain make all the decisions, and I'm just collateral damage. I still love him, But I'm angry and tired and terrified that I'm going to wake up one day at 35 or 38 with no baby, no options, and this same man beside me, still doing nothing. We made a vow to build a life together. And part of that vow, part of that life was raising a family. I didn't sign up for this kind of silence, for this kind of passive surrender. I need him to fight with me, to try, to grieve, to hope, to do something. I've started therapy on my own. I've suggested couples counseling, but he brushes it off. I'm fine, he says. We're fine. But we're not. It's hard to put into words what the last few months have felt like. I've never been more emotionally isolated in my life, and yet I wake up every day beside the man I vowed to share my whole world with. The man I used to dream about building a family with. The man I still love, but who now feels like a stranger when I look into his eyes and try to talk about the thing that matters most to me. Since my husband was diagnosed with azoo in February, my world has been quietly unraveling. His diagnosis meant there was no sperm present in his semen. The doctors said he could try medication and surgery to extract sperm directly from his testicles, but they didn't offer high odds. Still, they encouraged us to try, or at the very least consider donor sperm or adoption. But from that moment on, he just shut down. He didn't want to try the surgery, didn't want to take the medication, didn't want to hear the word donor. The idea of raising a child who didn't share his DNA made him feel, in his words, like a placeholder. He rejected adoption out of hand. He said he'd never wanted to raise a stranger's child. I tried to be patient. I gave him space. I listened. I waited. I hoped. But months passed, and nothing changed. If anything, he just became more withdrawn and more absolute in his refusal to do anything. He avoids the topic like it physically hurts him. And I get it, his identity took a hit. His whole sense of self was shaken. But he's not the only one grieving. I've had to mourn too. Quietly alone, because he doesn't want anyone to know. I have no one to talk to about this in real life. He begged me not to tell anyone. He's ashamed of the diagnosis. He's still carrying so much internalized shame and stigma about infertility, as if being unable to biologically father a child makes him less of a man. And so I've respected his wishes. I haven't told my family, my friends, or even my closest confidants. I carry all of this pain by myself. I cry in the shower. I lie awake at night. I write messages I never send. And meanwhile, I feel myself getting older. I'm 29 now. I know I'm not old, but I also know how fertility works. I know what it means when years go by with no forward motion. I know that wait and see becomes wait too long. I can't just sit in this holding pattern forever while the clock ticks louder and louder in my head. I know what I want. I want to be a mom. Not just in a vague, someday kind of way. It's real. It's visceral. I dream of tiny feet running across hardwood floors, of messy art projects taped to the fridge, of lullabies and bedtime stories and scraped knees and warm hugs, of watching a little person grow and becoming someone who makes the world just a little bit better. That's the life I want. That's the purpose I feel in my bones. And I realized something painful this past summer. My husband is right. We will never have a child together. Not because of biology, but because he doesn't want to try. Not anymore. Maybe not ever. We had one last conversation last night. I practically had to pin him down emotionally to get it. He avoids this topic with such intensity, like just saying the words aloud will break something inside him. But I needed clarity. I needed honesty. I needed something. So I sat him down, calmly, gently, and I told him, I empathize with him. I know this diagnosis has rocked his world. I understand that the surgery might be scary or feel like a long shot. I get that donor sperm is complicated and adoption isn't easy. But I reminded him, I want to be a mom. And if he doesn't want to try the surgery or donor options or adoption, and he doesn't want to go to therapy to even process these emotions or look for a path forward, then I can't stay in this limbo. I told him I'm not getting younger, and my dreams aren't getting quieter. I told him that if he's unwilling to explore any route to parenthood, if he truly doesn't want to walk down any path with me to become a parent, then I want a divorce. That broke him. He started crying, full-on sobbing. He said he couldn't believe I'd be willing to walk away from our marriage over this. That if I were the one who was infertile, he'd never leave me. That he'd stay and love me regardless. That I was punishing him for something he couldn't control. That I was cold. That I was abandoning him in the darkest time of his life. And I cried too. because I still love him. And I'm not punishing him for being infertile. I would never leave someone over something like that. What I can't live with is the fact that he refuses to even try. I told him that. I told him it's not the diagnosis. It's the silence. The avoidance. The refusal to even sit with a professional and explore our options. The absolute shutdown of every path we could possibly take. He says that proves I never loved him. That if I did, I wouldn't throw away our entire life together over kids that don't even exist yet. But those children do exist for me. In my mind, in my heart, in my dreams. And his refusal to even talk about them with me feels like he's shutting the door not just on parenthood, but on my future. I'm not throwing him away. I've been trying to pull him toward something, anything so we can still build a life we once promised each other. He wouldn't let me touch him after that. He cried, and when I tried to hold him, he pulled away. Said he couldn't even look at me. I slept in the guest room. Today, I feel hollow.
Guilty.
Like I've committed some unspeakable act of betrayal. But I also feel like I did the only thing I could do. What am I supposed to do? Keep begging him for another year? 5? Until it's too late, and I resent him every time I see a stroller? 8 months ago, I was staring at a marriage that felt like it was falling apart under the weight of pain, fear, and silence. Now, I'm holding on to a promise, a possibility, and a tiny little embryo that just might become the greatest gift of our lives. In those dark months after my husband was diagnosed with azoo, everything felt like it was slipping away. We were grieving in parallel, but never truly together. I was desperate to find a path forward, while he shut every door I tried to open. It felt like we weren't just dealing with infertility, we were dealing with two broken hearts trying and failing to comfort each other. The turning point came after one final, painful conversation where I told him I couldn't keep living in a futureless limbo. I wasn't threatening him. I was pleading for us. For our marriage. For some kind of action. And after the dust settled from that heartbreaking talk, something shifted. We spoke again, really spoke. Not just through the lens of diagnosis or fertility, but through empathy. I told him that I understood why the surgery terrified him, that it wasn't just about physical discomfort, but the emotional stakes of trying and possibly failing. I asked him to try therapy. Just once. Not a lifelong commitment, just one session. To my surprise, he said yes. That one session became 5. It changed everything. We met with a fertility therapist who helped us talk individually and then together. In that space, my husband opened up in a way I'd never seen before. He shared his shame, his fear of letting me down, his sense of inadequacy. He admitted he'd been pre-rejecting the possibility of fatherhood to protect himself from disappointment. It wasn't that he didn't want to be a dad anymore. He just didn't believe it was possible, and he couldn't bear watching me suffer through failed attempt after failed attempt. That honesty brought us closer. We connected on a deeper level than we had in years. The wall between us started to crack, and slowly, hope seeped through the cracks. One morning, I noticed a bottle of vitamins on his dresser. He hadn't mentioned them. He just started quietly taking them, making this one small step toward possibility. I was over the moon. We did another sperm analysis. The last time, they had found 0. This time, they found 2 sperm.
2.
It might not sound like much, but for us it was everything. I cried tears of joy. My husband did too. Then, a few weeks later, he forwarded me an email. He had scheduled a consultation for the micro-teeth surgery in December. On his own. Without prompting. Without pressure. That moment took my breath away. The consultation went well. His doctor said he was a candidate for surgery, and we booked it for February. We went into it with grounded expectations. We reminded ourselves that the outcome didn't determine our worth or our love. But still, we hoped. The day of the surgery, I was a bundle of nerves. We held hands until they wheeled him away. Hours later, they came out with the news. They had successfully retrieved 3 sperm. 3 healthy, viable sperm. We both cried. He held my face in his hands and told me he finally felt like he could breathe again. He told me he was proud of himself. I was too. 2 weeks later, his checkup showed everything healing perfectly. And then it was my turn. I began medication for my egg retrieval. My body responded beautifully. 12 eggs retrieved. 12 chances. 12 tiny sparks of hope. And then came the news that felt like a miracle. We had 2 embryos. 1 boy and 1 girl. Both healthy. Both strong. Our embryologist called it exceptional, especially given where we'd started. On May 1st, we had our implantation for our daughter. The day is etched into my soul. I held my husband's hand as they placed her inside me, our little blastocyst full of promise. A few days later, I tested. Positive. I sobbed. I clutched the test and couldn't stop shaking. My husband came in and saw my face and just knew. He dropped his knees and kissed my stomach and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me. We're pregnant. With our daughter. Our miracle. We still have a long way to go, of course. Pregnancy is just the beginning. But the difference between where we were and where we are now is night and day. I'm so grateful we found our way back to each other. We've both apologized 1,000 times. He said sorry for shutting down and giving up. I've said sorry for pushing too hard without recognizing how deeply he was hurting. But in the end, we did what we promised we would on our wedding day. We faced something impossibly hard together. We chose love. We chose hope. And now, we get to choose parenthood. If you're reading this and you're in that place of darkness and doubt, please know that you're not alone. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to be angry and sad and scared. But don't stop talking. Don't stop trying. And most importantly, don't stop loving each other through it all. Because sometimes, even when it feels impossible, you find your way back to the light. Going through IVF and fertility challenges is an incredibly emotional and often isolating journey, so it's really important to take care of your mental health as much as your physical health. IVF itself can be physically demanding and stressful, with so many hormones, appointments, and uncertainties. It's normal to feel anxious, hopeful, frustrated, or even overwhelmed. One of the biggest lessons I learned is how crucial therapy can be, not just for individuals but as a couple. Fertility struggles impact both partners deeply, often in different ways, and it's easy to feel alone in your emotions or misunderstood by the one you love most. A skilled fertility therapist provides a safe space to express those feelings, confront fears, and rebuild connection when the stress and disappointment pile up. Therapy helped us break down walls we didn't even realize were there. It gave us tools to communicate honestly, to support each other, and to navigate the roller coaster together instead of apart. Even one session can open doors. If you're considering IVF or already on the path, don't hesitate to seek emotional support alongside medical care. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a powerful step toward healing and hope. Fertility is a journey, often unpredictable, but with patience, support, and love, it can also bring unexpected joy and new beginnings.